like to get started. We have a couple outside the door here. There's plenty, a couple more seats up front for those. Don't be bashful. Good. I'm getting the thumbs up from John. That's always a good sign. Sergeant of Arms, are we good out there? All right, thank you. Welcome. Good afternoon. Welcome to VRE's Industry Day 2026. Happy to have you. Like any good railroad meeting, we will start with a safety briefing. Show of hands, who in the room is AED, CPR, especially qualified? All right, Sean Markey, you're my number one. I'll take back up to that. There is no AED in the building. However, 911 is in effect, and I have the phone number here for the manager, so we'll call 911 and call the general manager should we need other additional assistance. We do have a list of attendees, but if you would kindly look to your left and help be responsible for the person to your left should we have to evacuate. In the event of an emergency requiring evacuation, follow the lighted placard signs out the door to the left. So we don't have to cross any streets. We will go up Diagonal Street and meet at the corner of Duke and Diagonal. And Chris, you're in charge of that muster. Chris Coker, that is. That's pretty clear. Situational awareness, just identify any hazards, if you would, around the room. I know a couple of bags, a couple of wires. Most of it's taped down with the gaffer's tape, but if you could kindly move those out of the aisles, push your chairs in or chairs beside you if you have to get up and leave the room and come back, that would be very most helpful. Be cognizant of any hazards around us, in and around us. If you see something, say something. So we thank you for your attendance. We appreciate you being here. We'll jump into a few things here. Just a welcome and opening. For those of you who don't know, my name is Dallas Richards. I serve as the Deputy CEO and Chief Engineer for VRE, marking nearly 10 years with VRE this year. Very excited to be here as part of our growth and changes at VRE that we're seeing in the last few years especially. A few familiar faces in this room. Some of them I haven't seen in a while. Jamie, where are you? So good to see Jamie Jew. There she is in the back. Jamie and I worked together 19 years ago, and here we are again together today, so it's pretty exciting. Always a big smile, Jamie. Good to see you. I really want to talk about, before we do any introductions and get into the hard program, if you will, I want to talk about our purpose and some of what's different about today for those of you that have been part of this before, kind of what's different. But our purpose is really four things I want to mention, right? We want to promote VRE, obviously, and the program of projects that we have been cast upon us in some way we volunteered for. But we have quite a program to deliver, and we can't do that on our own. You in this room are very much a part of that. Secondly, I wanted to introduce our staff. Like, it's some of this work is not done face to face, and I have found that face to face is just a better way of doing business. So we are here to do that with you, face to face. We have some new faces that we'd like you to see, and I'm sure you have some new faces that you'd like us to meet as well. So we will do that. I was highly encouraged by what was happening there in the hallway, and part of this event, which is to promote, encourage, we'll say, collaboration and teaming. You may find a partner in this room for a future VRE effort, and that's part of why we're here. We will have a brief intermission, and we will do that again. So that will be good for us as well to mingle after we can talk about some of these projects. You can talk more about some of these projects. So I do want to be very clear. We're here to promote opportunity and competition. I think when we get through this, you will find this is a pretty big pie, and there's a slice for everyone, right? So competition is a good thing, but I think there's enough to go around for all of us here in this room to have these sorts of opportunities. So I'll offer this map on the wall, right? You can't have a railroad meeting without a safety meeting and a map, right? So we have the map. I offer just, not that you're going to be able to read all the nooks and crannies of that, but to really demonstrate what's out there, right? There's a lot going on in the corridor between us and our guests, VPRA, who are here today. Where's Meredith? There's Meredith. There she is, right there on my six. So really share with you what's going on in the corridor. Some of you know, some of you are already a part of that for sure. But so we can really get the word out and talk about what's going on with us. We have 11 active design projects, 4 recently completed projects. Some of in the room helped deliver those, like Ed Hanley and Clark and the Lou facility. So thank you for that. one active construction project literally out the window. If you walked in from the Metro or the VRE station, Amtrak station, you came past the King Street project, Alexandria Station, King and Commonwealth project, which has just got underway in earnest, and then 5 major construction IFBs within the next 2 years. Big ones, right? Really big ones. Exciting times for us. Our project managers will deliver these projects to you, sort of an overview today. You're welcome to find out more from them at a subsequent date and time, but that's what we have. I want to make the point with this slide, right? We have currently, or in process, if you will, but 4 IDIQ task order type, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity type contracts. The GPC, which is our planning, GEC currently, soon to be GPEC, which is our general planning and engineering. It'll replace those GEC and the GPC. Our program manager PMC contract, and our MEC mechanical engineering project. I very much want to be clear about part of the reason we're here is I very much consider these members of the team as extensions of our staff, right? I want you to know us, work with us, interact with us regularly, so you understand what we think, why we think it, what is important to us, and why, more importantly, why it's important. So you will see that from us, and you'll hear some of that from us today. But know that if you're on our team, you're on our team, and you're part of our family. So just know that coming in. Not all work is task order based, and there are limits to the task orders, financially, numerically. And so we have opportunities that aren't task orders. So don't think if you're not on one of these teams now or in the future that there aren't opportunities for you, because there will be certainly opportunities, whether IFBs, RFQs, IFBs, all sorts of things that can be done through other contract mechanisms. So just know that. We expect close coordination amongst these partners. In other words, we own the project, we own the process, if you will, in some respects, and we expect you to share the lessons learned from these in this close coordination, collaborative environment. And I think our cadre of current consultants would offer that is true. Like, they do share with one another. We encourage that sort of sharing and make sure that happens, because it is good for us and it's good for you. So the differences, I want to just mention before I go on how this is different. In years past, we have had an industry day, which is really kind of how we're starting this. Right? We had an industry day which was meant for the industry at large, and we've had consultants forum, which is meant for our consultants that were currently working for us. We've decided this year to combine those two, and we'll have a break and intermission. So that's the back half of this will be more about that consultants forum sort of platform, which is when you're doing business with VRE, what some of our expectations are. It's an update for some of our existing consultants, such as that. So just know that the forum is a little different. It's a little longer. I hope you'll stick around. We have a lot to share. You are welcome to leave at the intermission if you want. Things can happen there, or otherwise for that matter. But we have a lot to share before and after that, so please stick around. With that, I do want to make an introduction. I'm very excited about this introduction. We have a new team member and a new leader amongst us, and we're very happy to have Katie, who joined us back in January after a long search and a very, very quick selection, if you will, in the 4 months that we after our last CEO. But our new CEO, Katie Cho, has just joined us. I want to introduce Katie and have her come talk to this. Thank you so much, Katie, for being here, and thanks for letting us do this.
Okay. All right. Ooh, Dallas is taller than me. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I am thrilled to be here. I am thrilled to see all of you. Some of you are very familiar faces, and others are brand new to me. And that's one of the things that I like about these sorts of forums. So it's great to meet everyone. Yes, there we are. As Dallas said, I am the new CEO of VRE. I have been here since January. I am a lifelong New Englander. I grew up in Vermont and spent my academic and professional career in Massachusetts up until this point. And it really was the investment the Commonwealth of Virginia is making in rail that drew me from Massachusetts down here. There are so many exciting things happening, and the period of transformation that VRE is in right now is a moment we should all be excited to be participating in. And that's why I'm here. That's why we are all here. And I really appreciate everyone contributing to this. To tell you a little bit more about where we are at today with VRE and where we are going, for those of you who are less familiar with the system, we have two lines, the Manassas line and the Fredericksburg line, 19 current stations with one infill station that's being built by a developer. We are expecting that construction to start within a year, and that's at Potomac Shores. We have 78 miles of track currently, none of which we own. I think that that's important for everyone to know. We run entirely on Host Railroad's track. And we run 32 trains a day. And we are purely a commuter rail system at this time. We bring people out from Manassas and Fredericksburg area or into the city in the morning, and we bring them back home in the evening. And that is how we run. So those 32 trains are primarily built around those peak periods. We are struggling a bit right now with our reliability, and there's a few reasons for that. And this is really why we're making the investments that we are making in the system. This is an extremely congested corridor. We have freight rail, we have Amtrak, and we have VRE all running along these two corridors, primarily in areas where we only have two sets of tracks. And so we get in each other's way all the time. And the reason we are only running 32 trains is because that is quite literally all the capacity that there is to be running any sort of extra passenger rail in the area. And so if you look at the red and the blue here is infrastructure delays and congestion delays. When we are completed with the work that we are doing through 2030, 75% of our delays are automatically eliminated. And that's really why we're making these major investments in the system. So we talk a lot about infrastructure, we talk a lot about trains, but really in the end, we are in a people business. I am, thanks to Juan for pointing this out to me, I am dressed much more casually than you would see me in a regular day. And that's because I'm going directly from this to our Meet the Management event happening at Alexandria Station. So I'm spending time talking with all of you as our consultants and our professional stakeholders. And then I'm moving immediately to Meet the Management to talk for the next 5 hours with our riders and really get to know them, make sure they understand how much we appreciate them, but also get them to ask us questions, to voice their concerns, to say, hey, we've been delayed a lot in this one train. What's going on? Tell us what you're doing about it. Gives them a chance to really talk to us. And that personal touch is one of the things that sets VRE apart. And that's why it's so important, as Dallas talks about the partnership that we have with all of you, that ongoing extension of staff really also extends to how we care for our riders. And that comes down to how do we provide them frequent service, even within the constraints that we have? How do we eliminate those constraints to improve our frequency? Back to reliability, same things. How do we eliminate the constraints to get better reliable trains? And then lastly, how do we maintain or improve our competitiveness with the other modes, primarily for any of you who are from around here, traffic, single occupancy vehicles. We have some of the worst traffic in the country. VRE was literally established to alleviate congestion. And that's what we need to do. And so we need to get people to realize that VRE is the way to get around the area in Northern and Central Virginia so that you avoid the traffic. So our keys to success. There are some things that we can do prior to completing all of the work that is ongoing. One of them is to take better care of our riders, get them to understand that while we are a commuter system now, our grand aspirations are to be a regional rail system and a true mobility solution for the area. So we're doing things like returning event trains, the first one being for the fireworks for America's 250th birthday this year. And that's really a family-friendly event. It's exciting to be able to run trains to things that are happening around the area and actually serve as a solution for those single occupancy vehicles or family occupied vehicles in this case. We also have great airport connections that people don't really know about. It is very, very easy and significantly both cheaper and faster to take VRE, transfer at the Metro, and get to Reagan National than it is to actually drive in and park. And so, and very soon when Crystal City is done, we will actually have a direct connection to the airport from VRE. So that train to plane connection is something that we're trying to leverage, as well as with Manassas Airport. Our Broad Run station quite literally shares property with the Manassas Airport, and they are bringing commercial service to Manassas next year. And so we're looking at how we can create those intermodal connections and start alleviating single or vehicle trips, frankly, to both of those airports. We're also looking at opportunities to make sure that we're serving riders in a way that they need to be served. So we know the main employer around here is the federal government. I think everyone knows that. Not a surprise, the majority of our riders are federal employees, but that does make us rather at the whims of whatever the current federal employment policies are. So we did great when there was the return to office call last January. Our ridership almost doubled overnight. And then as we've seen the workforce reductions take place, our ridership is back down to almost 2001 levels. And not a surprise, if you look across the federal government, their employment levels are about where they were in 2001. So we definitely ebb and flow with the federal employment numbers and policies. We need to get out of that cycle. Part of that is moving to regional rail, bringing more opportunities for other people to ride our system. But we also need to be looking at other employment centers and making sure that we're actually serving those employment centers appropriately. And so we're doing partnerships with many of the business improvement districts around the innovation districts to determine where their employees live and how we can make sure that our service matches up with that demand. And as I mentioned before, we are very much a people business. And that means that we have a lot of ridership programs in place to make sure that we're serving the people who do ride well. Kids ride free on VRE every day, 18 and under. No matter who you are, you ride free on VRE. And that's an exciting opportunity. It makes family travel really reasonable. We have a program, the Amtrak Step Up program. So while we only run 32 trains a day, Amtrak runs additional. If you have a 10 ride pass or a monthly pass, you can pay just a small step up cost, and you can actually get on one of the Amtrak trains. So that's another opportunity, and actually a way to bring weekend service to our ridership before we're actually able to provide it on our own with our own trains. And then lastly, people often say, I'm worried I'm going to get stuck. I go from Fredericksburg into Washington, D.C., and then I miss my last train because I have a meeting that runs late, and then I'm stuck in D.C. and can't get home. That is quite an Uber ride. Well, it turns out we cover the Uber ride for you. So we have a guaranteed ride home program. And that for a couple times a year, you can use this guaranteed ride home program if you miss your last train, and we will make sure that you can get home without needing to pay for that ride. So this shows you what our plans are. So I've talked a lot about what's going on right now. We are doing a lot of work, as Dallas referenced, to be completed in year 2030, which is only 4 years away, a little less than 4 years away. And that work will allow us to increase our service by 60%. So we have 21 rail cars on order. We have some locomotives that we're currently negotiating. The use of those will get us to 60% additional service, extended evening hours, weekends, bi-directional all day long. That really moves us in 2030 from a commuter rail system to a regional rail system. And that's what all of this investment is about. And then we have an aspirational plan for 2050. We're getting a little bit of a push that maybe it's earlier than 2050 that involves moving to a more robust regional rail system where we will be further increasing our service, probably doubling or more our service, adding more express trains, adding more bi-directional service. We'll be essentially clock face 2 to 3 trains an hour, both lines every direction as we get towards that 2050. So that adds, we have additional fleet needs in order to accommodate that. And there is some additional infrastructure needs that we'll be working towards. I will tell you that our 2030 plans are fully funded. So 2030 is going to happen. We will complete all of this construction. We will complete the infrastructure improvements. We will add that fleet, and we will add that service in 2030. And then we will continue to build to our 2050 goals. And this gives you an idea of the work that we are doing, but it's not just VRE, as we mentioned before. VRE is working in conjunction with the state and VPRA, so that our two programs are complementary to each other to get us to that end state of of increasing the total capacity of our rail system, separating freight from passenger rail, which is really what gets us that capacity, and then being able to better serve Virginians with a true regional rail system. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our friends at VPRA to walk through their program.
All right. Thank you. I'm Meredith Judy. I'm with Virginia Passenger Rail Authority. I am the Community Affairs Manager for our Northern Virginia and DC projects. Okay. Let's see, a little overview about Virginia Passenger Rail Authority. We were actually created in 2020. At that time, the state of Virginia decided to invest heavily in passenger rail, believing that we can't entirely build our way out of congestion across the state, which we can't, out of roadway congestion. And so that we need to look at alternatives. We will continue to invest in roadways, of course, but the state believes that we need to invest heavily in rail too. We need dependable, frequent rail that's high capacity so that we can be competitive and that we can provide a real option for people across the state. So in 2020, Virginia Passenger Rail Authority was created by the General Assembly. Our goal is to what we do is we design, build, finance, and maintain rail facilities. We are a direct recipient of grants. We do not operate rail. We partner with Virginia Railway Express and with Amtrak to provide the rail operation on the tracks that we build. Let's see. Our vision is statewide. We have 4.58 billion in infrastructure investments that we are making at this time. Includes major new rail segments as well as many new rail bridges. As Katie described, the goal is to separate passenger and freight to whatever extent is possible, so that is no longer a conflict point for us. And that will allow us to create that frequency and reliability that I spoke about. We have acquired nearly 400 miles of railroad right-of-way for this purpose. Right now, the focus of our efforts is primarily in this segment between Washington, D.C. and Richmond. We have 10 major infrastructure projects, major capital construction projects underway. They're either currently under construction or nearly under construction. We also have a major investment in the New River Valley, which I'll talk more about later. A little bit about the specific opportunities that we have upcoming. The Long Bridge project is a 1.8 mile rail investment between the Long Bridge Aquatic Facility and nearly L'Enfant Plaza. It includes 5 new rail bridges and 2 new pedestrian and bicycle bridges. The delivery timeline is 2030. It's a $2.4 billion project. You'll see that we have it's split into 2 sections for delivery purposes, the section across the river and then the section in DC, because they are very different delivery needs. That has already been awarded. You'll note the first few that I'm going to talk about here have already been awarded to joint ventures, but there are many opportunities that are coming out through those joint ventures for support for contractors and additional manpower. So we recommend reaching out directly to these partners in order to be a part of those projects. I've listed the North and the South contractors on here. We also have the Franconia Springfield Bypass project. It's nearly a mile-long rail bridge that allows the passenger rail to cross over the freight rail. And the reason that we need to do this is because at the moment, it's a real bottleneck where the 2 tracks cross each other, but we have to shift the passenger rail from one side to the other because of where the station platforms are located. And so we are in the process of building that 1 mile rail bridge at the moment. Again, it's awarded, but many opportunities are coming out through the contractor. And then the final awarded project is the Leland Road Bridge project. We are building a bypass for a 3rd track in this area of Stafford County. And this is a new roadway bridge over the railroad tracks in order to allow for that widening and that additional railroad track. All right, upcoming opportunities. The Peters, and these have not yet been awarded, so we have some award dates there. The Petersburg Ettrick Station improvements. Amtrak station in Petersburg-Ettrick dates back to the 1950s. It needs significant investments. It's an important station, providing service for both the Amtrak Virginia trains, for the North Carolina State's Carolinian service, and for our national Amtrak's long-distance service that comes through this area. VPRA will be leading this project to make ADA accessibility improvements, a new platform and canopy, station building improvements, a new ticket window, signage, restrooms, ADA access, and parking lot and drainage improvements. The procurement is planned for May 2026. There will be a virtual pre-bid conference in May, and we recommend checking our website to provide updates or emailing our procurement email address, both of which are listed here on the slide. The next one is the Fairfax County Sanitary Sewer relocation, which will be released spring 2026. And this is associated with our Alexandria this is associated with our Franconia to Lorton third track project. The sewer line needs to be relocated. We're in the design phase right now, and this will soon be released for procurement in June. The Alexandria Whitterfield pedestrian improvements. This one is associated with our Alexandria fourth track project. As part of that fourth track project, which is the creation of a fourth railroad track between between Arlington, basically the Long Bridge project, the Potomac River, and just past the Alexandria station. We're building a fourth railroad track, but as a part of that, we need to eliminate what's known as the Telegraph Road pedestrian tunnel in the Telegraph Road area. And so we are building a new pedestrian path to facilitate access when that tunnel is removed. That procurement will be released this summer. Again, we recommend contacting this email address or speaking with my colleagues afterwards if you're interested in more information on that opportunity. The next one I want to mention is the New River Valley digital technology upgrades. We have partnered with Norfolk Southern to extend the Amtrak service from Roanoke to the New River Valley. The station will be created in downtown Christiansburg. But before Amtrak service can begin, VPR needs to install digital technology such as PIDs, passenger information display systems, card readers, Wi-Fi and security cameras. This procurement will be released in late 2026. All right, we have many partners that I mentioned that we work with who are also releasing procurements. So these are all VPRA projects, but they're being delivered by different parties. So I think VRE will probably speak to a couple of procurements that they have underway. These are partnership projects with VPRA. The Alexandria Station King and Commonwealth Bridges project has already been procured. Again, there are likely opportunities with the contractor, but you've all seen, as Dallas mentioned, the work that's happening outside our window here. It's very exciting. And then the L'Enfant Station track and station improvements is going through the procurement process right now. Let's see. Norfolk Southern, another one of our important partners, is releasing a procurement for the New River Valley passenger rail, which I mentioned earlier, the extension that we're doing. But that will be procured through Norfolk Southern, that extension work. It has been awarded to a contractor, but again, subconsultant opportunities available. The Roanoke Yard improvements. Norfolk Southern crews are actually doing this work themselves. And then the Nokesville to Calverton project will add a second track in this area between Culpeper and Manassas. The procurement is expected to be released in 2027. And then finally, our CSX partner has a number of projects that they are procuring. The Alexandria fourth track project, which I've mentioned a couple times, is actually being managed by CSX. That contract has been awarded and construction's underway, potentially subcontractor opportunities available. The Franconia to Lorton third track project is a 6 miles of third tracks in Fairfax County. That will be procured this summer, 2026. It's a new rail corridor along an existing rail corridor, as well as the Potomac Creek third track project. We expect that to be advertised in late 2026, and that's a sidings project. We have a number of 4 other sidings projects that we do not yet have a timeline for, but it's something that you can keep your eye on if that's the kind of work that interests you. And we've listed our contact for CSX here as well. All right, I think I've covered all the highlights here. And my colleagues, Kara and Maurice, will be available, and myself will be available after this session at a table to answer any questions that you have about VPRA opportunities. Thank you.
All right, let's talk about planning. My name is Nick Ruiz. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm the planning program manager with VRE. Raise your hand if you are familiar with the system plan or have poked around in it before this. I'm not going to like blame anyone for not, but this should hopefully provide a little bit more information about the why. And there's a lot of projects that we talked about are in flight or are going to construction in the next couple of years. But I really wanted to back everyone up a couple minutes and just talk a little bit about the strategy behind some of this growth, this planned growth. So the last time we did a major system plan update was back in 2014. And I don't think I need to convince anybody in this room that the world looks very different today and the region looks very different today than it did in 2014. Communities are growing and changing. We have explosive growth down the 95 and 66 corridors. We're kind of in this interesting hybrid work reality where, we're not in the office 5 days a week. It's more than it was in 2021, but it's not what it was, in 1991, let's say. So, commute patterns have changed as a result of that. And then also, as Meredith and others have mentioned, transforming rail in Virginia and the work that VPRA is doing and the agreements that we are party to really give us the opportunity to expand service. As Katie mentioned, 2030 is essentially all but funded. So we're going to get to 2030 whether we want to or not. Also, just I don't think anybody would argue with this that Northern Virginia does not end at the Occoquan River anymore. Maybe it did back when VRE was first starting out. But the congestion is very acute, and it continues to be congestion that we see on our roadways all throughout the week. I mean, it's almost worse to traverse this bridge, on a Saturday than it is at like 7 o'clock on a Tuesday. So broadly, what the system plan covers and what it includes is a 2030 service plan and a 2050 service vision. And the reason why we refer to the 2050 plan as a vision is because it's more unconstrained by the current and funded infrastructure. The 2030 service plan, however, is very much constrained to what we know is planned and funded, what we and our partners at VPRA are actually constructing. So we have a very high degree of confidence that in the next 4 years, especially after Long Bridge is complete, after the fourth track is complete, that we will be able to operate this 2030 level of service. So included in both the 2030 and the 2050 plans are financial forecasts, identification of the capital needs. And so many of the projects that aren't even on the list today that will come up as you continue to partner with VRE in the coming years and decades, they draw from some of the identified needs in the system plan. And so broadly speaking, we aligned ourselves behind a vision. And so this is what our operations board and our governing commissions, PRTC and NVTC, adopted back in 2025. And that's that VRE will grow to serve the region as the transportation service of choice, creating meaningful connections and economic opportunities in a safe, sustainable, and equitable manner. And I think the operative word here is grow. We are not content to just run our 32 trains between now and 2050. We do not feel like that adequately meets the needs of a growing region and a growing economy. So VRE is going to grow, and we're going to become the backbone of the region, hopefully in 2050. This is really our big vision. You'll see it articulated in various ways, but I think, as Dallas mentioned at the top, a safety briefing and a map. So here's your map, Dallas. Maybe a schematic, actually, technically. But basically, we are going to provide, in the next 25 years, dedicated transit connections to enhance that multimodal, transit capability for customers, for travelers to access the region's core, but also to access employment and activity centers outside of the region's core, outside of the Beltway. And these are areas that are growing honestly faster than some of the activity centers in our region's core. So if you can imagine today, somebody who lives, let's say, west of 95 in Spotsylvania County, like somewhere, like somewhere over here. If they wanted to take transit to their job at the Pentagon right now, that's a pretty convoluted trip, or it's just not a trip that can be made. You know, you got to walk a mile and a half to a FXB Go bus. You got to take that bus to Fredericksburg Station. You got to get on a VRE train. You got to go to Crystal City. You got to take the metro. Forget it. Nobody's going to do that unless you just love sitting on transit vehicles your entire, morning. So this is going to allow, with that more frequent service, with those dedicated connections, it's going to allow those transit trips that are just totally convoluted today to be possible. And I think what that's going to do is divert people from our region's congested highway facilities. One thing I want to point out too, we talked a little bit about the benefit of having connections to our region's airports. By 2050, VRE is going to serve all 3 of the region's commercial airports, either through a dedicated connection or through a complementary transit connection at a dedicated transfer site. So, and then a 4th if you include connection to MARC up to BWI. So, I mean, that's huge. I don't think there's a region in the country that can boast that kind of connectivity. Right. So, just recapping the 2030 service plan, it is constrained both largely financially and from an infrastructure perspective. And the 2050 service plan is kind of the what do we want to be when we grow up? And what we want to be when we grow up is a regional rail system that can respond to the needs of the region. So talking about the benefits, and this is really, I think, one of the things that sold our operations board and the other elected officials in the region on VRE, and has continued to be the reason why, we show up to work and why we plan for, design and build these projects. That even back in 2025, VRE was carrying more in most cases than a lane's capacity of highway on I-66 and I-95. It's very, very expensive. If some of you have been involved in highway expansion projects, it's very, very expensive in this region to build highway capacity. In many cases, we just don't have the right of way, right? And so VRE is providing that service to the Commonwealth, to the region's highways by avoiding that VMT, and that's really big, right? Talking about the cost here, I mean, this is a little bit tongue in cheek, but this is some data from actual past highway projects in our region, and you can see that in some cases, over $120 million a lane mile to construct these facilities. Contrast that with the operating cost to run one VRE round trip, and it's about $2.8 million. Let's call it 3 now because we've had some inflation since I put these slides together. So it really shows just how much more VRE service can be run for the cost of adding 1 lane of highway, 1 mile of 1 lane of highway. So just to recap here, we're looking to run 60% more service than we do today in 2030. And then when we get to 2050, we're looking to run up to 116 trains. And that just sounds like a mind-blowing number. But when you really break it down, that's a dedication to run 20-minute peak period headways on weekdays and 30-minute reverse peak. And then we propose to set a floor of running no more than hourly service at all other times and on the weekends. And we really feel like that's the bare minimum that the region deserves. And I think we're going to be able to accomplish that with some of these infrastructure projects here in the next 10 to 15 years. So just a final slide here, just a little bit about the funding environment. As Katie mentioned, most all of our 2030 plan is funded. To get to 2050, that's a little bit bigger of a lift, right? So we're going to have to continue to convince the region and the local elected officials that this is a good investment, because we do have a lot of projects here that we've identified as things that we will need to accomplish in the next 25 years that, as you can see from the red dots, we just currently don't have identified funding for. So that's the system plan in a nutshell. I'll turn it back over to, who is next, Dallas? Is that you? All right, to talk about the capital project updates. Thank you.
I hope it's becoming more obvious to you why we're here and why we've asked you to be here, right? So it's a lot going on. In this next section, we want to offer, similar to what Meredith had done, offer an update on those capital projects for which we will need your help. Um, but and I had hoped that the individual project managers would be able to do that for us. And two of them are here. Two of them were not available. So you'll have to listen to me for a few minutes, but give me grace. I'll be brief on a couple of them. And after that, because it's not all just capital projects in the sense of building new, as we mentioned, right, our infrastructure will increase significantly over time. Like our number of elevators will double or triple, and the number of pedestrian bridges and parking garages, all these things will double or triple in our count. And those things you have to maintain, right? So Eric's going to come up here and talk about some of our ongoing facilities maintenance projects as well. So not just all capital projects. With that, I'm going to jump in. I've done it basically by PM, project manager, not by geography, so bear with me. But the first one is our Lafont project, which we're very excited about. I won't bore you with the static image when I have the digital image to talk through, but those familiar. So bear something we've put together here without sound. I will try to narrate, assuming it gets going here. Most of you know that Lafont Station is in the district, right near the Salamander Hotel, Lafont Plaza, if you will. We are working between essentially 6th and 7th Streets, which will come into view here in a moment. But from 9th Street, moving northbound here through the corridor, you'll see, you can kind of tell the existing station off in the distance, but Hancock Park is there on the west side of the tracks. We've gone to great pains to avoid that. There will be a 4th track added back where there used to be track, essentially. You can see here where 7th Street is passing over, in the Smithsonian building, WMATA's new office building, and we're building that 4th track over 7th Street, which will then have to be widened, significantly widened. And then the new station, you can see in the detail there. Coming down now, flying under 7th Street, you can see there's some clearance issues we're having to deal with, pretty complex geometry, elevator to the metro, new entrance, sort of subterranean entrance into the station and up. Very excited for this one. As we move into maybe all of the video, I guess we're coming through here, up to the station, which I'll point out that this is a new center platform, which gives us 2 platform edges in the future where we only have 1 today, which is tremendous for our capacity and fluidity of service as we head into Union Station. Come down the stairs on the 6th Street side. Again, subterranean entrance, elevators on both ends, a new elevator on both ends, which replaces our current ADA access through Hancock Park. New entrance here at the building. And then, of course, we actually have to rebuild the entire 6th Street Bridge. It will be a complete replacement of 6th Street Bridge. So it's, in some ways, I'm going to show you Alexandria in a moment, but 2 bridges, 2 elevators, and a center platform. So that should sound familiar. And, of course, the retaining wall here on the west side of Virginia Avenue, or east side, rather, on Virginia Avenue. All right. I think that's about it. Let that one wind down. I like the paint job on that train. A little different. Yeah, that's the new 6th Street Bridge and the existing stone masonry wall. So we are, slide coming in a moment, but basically we are in a CMGC. I will point out our first ever CMGC alternate delivery mechanism for contracting is coming soon. Well, we're in the RFP stages now with that CMG solicitation. So new to us. But there are some potential opportunities for those in the room. Just from a scheduling piece, the CMGC is underway now. RFP is out until be out for a little longer. Final design in that sort of pre-construction design phase through 27, and then going to construction in Q1 2028. That is our current plan. As far as other services we'll be soliciting, we did get board approval for our CVS, we're calling it, cost validation services. We want some help in costing this out for comparison to our subsequent costing from contractors. Also, construction management, the CMGC obviously, and then other opportunities as they arise throughout the life of the project. So we're very excited for this one. It is a very valuable in a lot of ways. Our goal is to finish this before VPRA finishes Long Bridge. Nobody wants to be last, right? We're hoping this is not the last link in the puzzle between Alexandria and DC. So we're planning accordingly and making good progress. With that, I'll jump to Alexandria, literally right outside the window. There aren't a lot of opportunities left for this one right now, maybe subcontracting, subconsulting services potentially. But as you can see, we are underway. We are under construction. Very exciting. And so in this sense, it's celebrating the success. Just getting these things on the street is a big deal for us, right? We hadn't done a whole lot of construction before, say, 2016, 2017. We were very much in the planning phase, then the design phase, and now we're entering that construction phase before we enter the maintenance phase in 2040. So, but very exciting here. Total bridge replacement for King Street and Commonwealth Avenue. Total closures here coming soon. Jump spans coming this weekend, in fact. So very excited. New center platform lengthening, major rehab, everything but the building itself will be touched. So excited for that. As far as timeline, you can see it's pretty complicated. A lot of pieces. These jump spans will go in, and then the new bridge work coming basically a year out. So lots of steel fabrication, erection in the coming weeks and months. And then by next year, we're going to do a track swap things out. We'll have a new fourth track on the corridor, at least partially completed, and then swap these out to the other side, do the other bridge. These, by the way, I know some of you are taking pictures of the slide, which is perfectly fine, but we will be posting the slides on our website. If you need to get them, you can download slides later. Construction management, construction admin have all been awarded. No further opportunities identified currently. We'd like to keep it that way. So we'll keep plugging away on this project. One of the biggest cranes I think I've ever worked with. It's a big one. So take a look, walk over to the station. Exciting. Crystal City. This is another big one. We mentioned connection to the airport. Essentially, this station will become the hub for multimodal transportation. Amtrak is looking to come here as well. So we'll have intercity rail, regional rail, connection to the airport, pedestrian connection to Crystal Drive. This is a very exciting project with our partners, working closely with the county for the bridge stuff over to the airport, and JBG Smith, the adjacent property owner. So a lot going on here. I'm going to walk you through a quick video as well for this one. I promise there's not video for all of them, but this one's kind of cool as well. Talk you through it. You can see aerial view here coming down on about 24th, between 18th and 24th Streets in Arlington. We're basically removing the station about 300 yards south from the corridor. Adjacent to JBG Smith's building, you can see in blue the connection over to the airport, 2811 Crystal Drive, if you want to reference that. And coming in with, basically, there's a Sallyport building between the two buildings. We will be building a new entrance up and over, rehabbing the building. This elevator you see here will punch through about 3 or 4 floors in the parking garage, which we try to demonstrate here as well. This is a very complicated construction project. It will be coming soon. It will, as far as the plan is right now, traditional design bid build for this project. You can see here punching through the floors for the elevator in the garage. New staircase, some architectural treatments that we're not accustomed to using, but happy to offer that to our friends at the county and JBG Smith. You can look at some of this work has already been done by JBG Smith on the adjacent building, so we'll just be matching some of the architectural treatment for congruency with that. And then up the stairs, over the tracks, you can see our ADA ramp. Again, this is all on top of the existing building. Coming out on the station side, opposite, you can see here the bridge. Give it a moment. In this rendering, we do not show the bridge to the airport, but we have basically a knockout panel, I'll call it, that will be provisioned for the future bridge. We've got the design criteria. You can see it there in the sort of the gray shape that will be where the bridge goes in that knockout, and rendered there just for instructional purposes. And then trying some new things with the elevators. We're going to do 2 elevators in the right-of-way over here as opposed to our customary single elevator. We're working closely with Amtrak, offering for them to bring service to the station, just like we do at Alexandria. They don't currently stop at Crystal City, but with 2 platform edges and some pretty new headquarters, if you know what I mean, plus connection to the airport. It's pretty significant for them as well. Some more non-traditional canopy for us, the Flying V, we're usually gable-ended. So this is a unique project, unique in a lot of ways for us. So with that, I will move forward. Or maybe not. Hold on now, I think I got it. John had to help me do this earlier, but I think I got it. There's a lot to this presentation, the water park and other things. So we had 2 phases of this project. We thought we were going to have to deliver it in 2 phases, but we're going to deliver it in one single phase. The second phase is caught up essentially thanks to our consultants. We'll be finishing that final design truly in the coming months, if you will, and then soliciting that for award for construction. We just did awarded construction management contract, construction admin pending award soon, but the construction IFB is anticipated later this year. This one is largely driven by CSX VPRA's schedule for the 4th track. In fact, both of these projects, the Alexandria Station, King Street, and Crystal City, are largely driven by what the state is doing with the 4th track and the timing of that. So in some cases, we want to be out there before them. In some cases, we have to be out there after them. And so that's where we're working sort of both ends to the middle. All right. I'm going to ask Katrina to come up. Katrina is our newest project manager. So Katrina, be sure to introduce yourself here.
Now it's pretty tall. This microphone was in the sky. So for those of you who don't know me, hi, I'm Katrina Corcadell, and I will be going over the Franconia Springfield Station Improvements Project. So the purpose of this specific project is to improve the capacity of the station and the station circulation, enhance safety, improve ADA accessibility, and to maintain station access in coordination with the 3rd track project. It's not explicitly shown on here, but the new 3rd track is going to be going behind the east platform. So that's the one on the bottom. So that's going to be running right over our existing access to Berry Road. And a lot of people in that neighborhood use it to get to not only our station, but the metro station that's at Franconia. And in order to achieve this, we're going to be extending both the east and west platforms to accommodate full-length 8-car trains. Currently at the station, if you've stopped in Franconia, in order to get on and off, you have to kind of condense to a couple of the center cars. So, again, improving station circulation, capacity. We don't want everybody jamming towards the middle. We want everyone to safely be able to spread out. We are also going to be installing a very cool, very big precast pedestrian tunnel and walkway with a canopy. So that ties into that upcoming 3rd track project, right? So we are going to get that in place before 3rd track comes, so that way we can maintain access to the station. This project is also going to include a lot of repairs and upgrades to existing station elements. So some new signage, we're maintaining and upgrading the pedestrian bridge, the stair tower, and, fixing the existing platforms and making sure everything looks new and cohesive. But overall, this project is focused on improving the passenger experience and addressing new operations that are going to be happening at the station with 3rd track. And then from a delivery standpoint, the project design is complete. So we are finalizing the invitation for bids package. Our consultants have been working really hard on that, and I very much appreciate them. And for permitting, we expect that process to be completed by the end of Q3 of this year. And then that means construction, we're expecting to start at the beginning of next year. The overall construction duration is expected around 24-25 months. And that puts us listing for IFB later this year. So we look forward to you guys' interest and participation in this project. And hopefully we can get this done before 3rd track comes through. And I'm going to hand the floor over to Chris Coker, and he's going to talk to you guys about Broad Run.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Coker. I've been with VRE for the last 5 years as a project manager. Last time I attended this event in the same room, I was a design consultant chasing VRE work. So it's been a while and it's good to have you all back. Today, I'm going to cover a couple of our maintenance and storage facility projects, starting with the Broad Run expansion. This is a major infrastructure project at our maintenance and storage facility in Bristow, Virginia. This is located at the end of the Manassas line. The main purpose of this project is we have 21 new rail cars coming, and they will be receiving delivery here at this facility. 10 of those rail cars will ultimately be stored here, and we just need to increase the yard capacity for those additional rolling stock pieces. So to do so, we're going to extend 8 of the existing tracks and add 4 additional storage tracks to the yard. This is going to have some collateral impacts to our existing crew building and the Broad Run station itself. So after we get the yard built out to the ultimate configuration there, we're going to build a new employee welfare building, reconstruct the Broad Run station about 700 feet north of its existing location, and add a train wash facility. So looking forward to this major undertaking. Currently, we are just nearing the end of the final design phase, working through permitting with Prince William County and the city of Manassas, and acquiring property from both those member jurisdictions. So we have recently awarded our construction management contract, but keep an eye out for the construction solicitation, which will be coming out later this year. Next up, I want to talk to you about the seminary yard, which is about 2 miles that way, just south of the Alexandria station. This is a former Norfolk Southern freight yard that was acquired by VPRA in the Manassas Line agreement. So this is going to be about 1.5 miles long, 4-track down to 2-track yard that we are going to be acquiring from VPRA. And this will be our midday storage replacement facility. So traditionally, VRE stores trains at the Amtrak coach yard, which is just north of Union Station. But just like VRE, Amtrak has additional fleet coming in with their new Aerofleet vehicles. So we have an agreement to start drawing down our equipment from the coach yard over the next couple of years. So all that is going to be coming to Seminary Yard to store here after AM service. So we did begin using the facility back in December after a couple of rounds of track maintenance activity, but we do have a more robust design plan coming up for what we're calling phase 2. So with that, we'll be bringing in access roads, traditional yard utilities, things of that nature, and start planning for future phases for crew buildings and potentially S&I building. So where we are with the seminary program is we're just wrapping up conceptual design. And as I mentioned, final design should be out in the street soon. So keep an eye out for that as well. And next up, I'd like to introduce VRE's Director of Facility Maintenance, Eric Johnson. Clicker and in the middle.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Johnson. I'm the Director of Facilities Maintenance for VRE. I've been with VRE for about 20 years now, about 12 years in this capacity. Today, I just wanted to give you a very brief overview of what our department does, and then I will talk about a few opportunities that we have coming up shortly. So we do maintain the 18 rail stations, 3 rail yards for limited responsibility in the rail yards, and 2 office spaces. Our headquarters here in Alexandria, and a satellite office that we have in Fredericksburg. So we do maintain every aspect of every station, from life and safety systems like the bridges, stairs, platforms, lighting, emergency generators, and then perhaps slightly lower priority, but still important systems, drainage, downspouts and gutters, fencing, signage, you name it, every aspect of the stations. We do have 2 primary contracts under which we do most of this work. We have a maintenance contract where we perform base work such as preventive maintenance for HVAC systems, elevators, emergency generators, pest control, standpipes. And then we issue quite a few task orders for a wide range of types of work under this contract. We also have a contract for custodial and seasonal services. So that would cover the daily custodial services at all of the stations, seasonal landscape services, and winter weather services. And under that contract, the custodial and landscape services are considered the base work, and winter weather services are task orders. And we also issue a number of various types of work through task orders to this contractor. They're very capable. But even though most of our work is performed through task orders under these two contracts, from time to time, we do have the opportunities to solicit slightly larger projects, and we do have a few coming up very shortly. So the first would be the Woodbridge Station Parking Garage Elevator Modernization. We have 12 elevators in our system, and this is one of the oldest that we do have. So it's definitely due for some modernization work. And this will include rehabilitating almost every component of this elevator, the machine room, the controls. We are going to install some vandal resistant features just because that is an issue at some of our facilities, this one in particular. So we do our best to combat that. Construction is expected to start this summer. And then moving on to the Ripon Station rehabilitation, excuse me. This is one of our stations in Prince William County that just needs a little bit of TLC right now. And we are going to, we plan on starting construction towards the end of this year. We will be touching most aspects of this station as well, including the stairs, the pedestrian bridge, the platform, various concrete repairs, steel repairs, lighting replacement, replacing the tactile warning strip, painting, and probably a few things that we will add to the scope very shortly. And then the last one I have to discuss is the Lorton Station temporary platforms. At our Lorton Station, like most of our stations, we typically utilize the platform directly adjacent to, we utilize the track directly adjacent to the platform, which in this case is track 2 in Lorton. From time to time, we do have to utilize track 3 in the case of certain emergency situations, such as a freight train that might be disabled down the tracks. In that case, we have timber pedestrian crossings in place to so we can board and detrain our trains in an emergency situation. We open up one door on the train and everybody uses that platform or that crossing, and that's the one shown on the far left side. But coming up very shortly in a couple months, we will probably be utilizing track 3 much more often, perhaps on a daily basis, and this could go on for a couple of years. And this is due to some other track work that is taking place in the corridor. So to keep our station dwell times to a reasonable level, we're going to be installing, we're going to reconstruct the existing crossing, and we're going to add 3 more. This photo shows a few more than that. We've reduced the number, but we will be constructing 4 temporary being probably a couple of years. And this is expected to start in June, actually be completed by the end of June of 2026. So this will be an RFQ that we will be issuing very shortly. And this just reiterates the dates that I was speaking of earlier. The parking garage elevator modernization project, anticipating issuing an IFB hopefully next month. For the Lorton Station temporary platforms, also next month in May. And for the Ripon rehabilitation construction this summer to this fall, with construction starting towards the end of the year. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kristen Nutter for the procurement overview.
Oops, sorry about that. Good afternoon. Kristen Nutter, VRE's Director of Purchasing and Contract Administration. Very excited to be with you all. I wanted to thank my colleagues. They've done a great job of highlighting all of the projects that are advancing toward procurement. So I felt it was important to spend a few minutes and highlight our procurement requirements and our process. For VRE, I'm often asked if there's a pre-qualification process that vendors have to go through. And while we don't have a formal process, we do have a number of requirements which are enumerated here, which we want to ensure that the bidders or offers have addressed in order so that we can award a contract, beginning with being authorized to conduct business by the State Corporation Commission. Also, the Department of General Services for Virginia publishes a list of prohibited vendors. We check that to ensure that the contractor is not on that list before award. Additionally, because we are a recipient of federal funds, we look at the System for Award Management, which is sam.gov. You can check yourselves there and just ensure that you're an entity that's not debarred or prohibited by the federal government. And then finally, also for general contractors and for engineering consultants, we ensure that the state of Virginia has an active business license, or in case of engineering, it'd be an authority to transact business, a certificate essentially from the state ensuring that you can do business. So these are just some of the general requirements. Again, not a formal pre-qualification, but to ensure that we are legally bound to do business with you. So I wanted to highlight that. And then moving on, I wanted to also just touch on how the procurement process begins for VRE. And that starts with operations board authorization. For any of our procurements with a cost estimate in excess of $1 million, we're required to go to the board and seek their authorization to advertise a request for proposals, an invitation for bid. And I highlight that because it's important. It's a good way for you as a vendor to take a look at those monthly agendas and see what's upcoming in terms of solicitations. And it also starts what we sort of deem the code of silence, or the cone of silence, excuse me, for VRE, which is essentially at that point we start having internal conversations about the scope, and we stop having conversations with consultants about the scope, that is, so that we can ensure there's a level playing field. Certainly you can reach out to procurement if you have just general questions about the timeline, but at that point we wouldn't have any meetings with external stakeholders, let's say consultant community, so that we can ensure, again, that level playing field. And then in terms of how we advertise, we post in parallel on the VRE website, and we also use EVA, which is the Virginia's procurement marketplace, their e-portal essentially. So you'll see solicitations are posted in both places. All documents, including questions and answers, addenda, anything will be in both places. They'll be identical at all times. But in terms of our website, we've provided the direct link. If you're going through EVA, you want to ensure you're looking at the Virginia business opportunities, and then you can search by buying entity. So search for Virginia Railway Express in the buying entity, and you will see all the solicitations that we have active. And we use EVA, kind of moving on a step to the receiving process. We use EVA to receive our bids and proposals. So unless it's identified in the solicitation that we'll accept a hard copy, generally speaking, everything is electronic, nothing through email. It's all through EVA. So there's a process set up through EVA to essentially for suppliers to establish an account. So we found that the EVA customer care team is very, very good about working with vendors and setting up their accounts. We provided some contact information here. And also, I believe the only piece of documentation they require in terms of for that setup is a W-9 to be uploaded. So it's a fairly streamlined process. And once you've set that up, you'll have access to not only, of course, our procurement opportunities, but you'll also be able to see those for any other state agency, local jurisdiction. So it's a very good resource. And again, that's the exclusive means for us largely to receive our bids and proposals. And we've been using that for about a year now, and it's been a great mechanism. I think we've found it to be very, very efficient. And finally, this is sort of a wrap up of all of the solicitation or procurement opportunities that we've hit on this afternoon. There was an extensive list that was available at the registration table. If you didn't pick one up on your way in, please do so as you leave. This list, again, is just what was touched on during the presentation, but the list that was available at the registration table highlights projects out 24 months. So it even gives a very bigger picture of what we have coming in terms of invitation for bid, request for proposal, request for quote, which is RFQ, you'll see on there as well. So there's a lot coming, and we're anxious to start working with you. And please, as I mentioned, those requirements for doing business, if you can start trying to address as many of those if you haven't already, and that'll just put you in a great position to compete when those solicitations are advertised. So at this time, we're going to open it up prior to intermission for some questions. I'll invite Dallas back up as well, and we can address your questions about our projects, about the procurement process, anything that we can, help to put a pin in for you.
There will be another opportunity. Thank you. Go
Yep,
ahead,
sure.
yeah. Stick around, Kristen. There will be opportunity for more questions after the second part, but if anyone wanted to go after intermission, we can certainly entertain that. But are there any questions for Kristen or myself, particularly for Kristen, after that presentation?
Kristen and Dallas, we do have one from Eric online. The first one, it's a bit of a three-part question. The first one I'm happy to take. You addressed it. He asked if we can share a portal link where these opportunities are and bid responses. We will send information around. All the slides will be available to everybody who registered. We'll have it available on our website along with that document that shows kind of that list of anticipated solicitations. The second part of his question is, will there be a small business participation percentage requirement? And are there any local state certifications that may be considered favorable for small business opportunities?
So we, of course, always invite small minority businesses to compete. We don't have a specific set aside or requirement. SWAM in particular is a small women-owned, minority-owned business as a certification from the Commonwealth. Again, no goal, but we do encourage we look at whether there was a due diligent effort by the prime contractor to find subs. But right now, I'll also highlight just kind of the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program. The federal program is on pause. There was an interim final rule regarding that. So we're not looking at DBEs right now. There is not a formal certification for a DBE it's a process that the state and the feds are working to stand up again. But to answer the question, there isn't a set number, but we do encourage it. And, there's a way to go through the Small Business and Supplier Diversity website for the Commonwealth and also find out which vendors have an active SWAM certification.
Anything else? Any other questions before our short break? All right, thank you. We'll take a 15-minute recess. We'll be back here. I'll watch the time. Stay close and do a little networking. Hopefully there are cookies. Maybe they restocked them out there. I don't know. So get them before I get there. So. with your current or any previous employer? Just show of hands. Raise them high. I want to see. Right? It's a lot of people, and more than not. The predominant majority of the folks in this room have worked with us over the years. I like to think we do things pretty well, but are, like we talked about, the extension of family, right? Family can criticize you a little better than the others. So we are always open to new and better ideas, or ideas of ways of doing things better. We're working through, some pains of growth, right? We are having some real growing pains by how much we are adding in our system. It is difficult. We are doing it in ways that I had not imagined when I started 10 years ago at VRE. Most of it has gone well, but we have learned a lot in the last few years for sure. So let me jump into a few things. First and foremost, safety and security. Under my new role, relatively new role, I will say, as Deputy CEO for CATIE, I have been assigned all duties related to safety and security compliance, which is quite a big blanket and quite a lot of responsibility for us. With that, and this is a relatively new development for me, I'm going to be turning to our consultants and our teammates to help us with this, both helping us become compliant, stay compliant, be better at compliance, and those sorts of things. One thing that you will have to do with VRE is the rules to live by. We have that published. If you want to work with us, you will have to complete this, whether it's consulting, contracting. If you're going to be on the right of way, you have to do this. Roadway worker protection. Historically, we have not hosted the training, nor is it a VRE specific roadway worker training like other, but we have to complete the roadway worker protection training for all of our host railroads, all 3 of them. And so it's quite time consuming for our staff, as you can imagine. But if you're working on the NS side, you'll need NS training. If you're working on the CSX side, you'll need CSX training. If you're working on both, you'll need both. So just know that, account for that in your proposal and your time. For those things, I would hope that most of your employees already have such training, and that's covered in the sort of overhead things that you have to do annually, right? So just know that these are requirements for us, Amtrak training as well. We have a relatively new requirement that I'm working through right now, which is the SSE. For those not familiar, that's the Security Sensitive Employees. It was brought to my attention in CFR, I guess it's like one of those 1820 or 1850 something codified regulation sections that require any employee who's working on the right of way or with the infrastructure, I will say, including building right of way, for 60 days or more in a year. And it's aggregate. So it can be 10 days at a time, 6 times within a calendar year. That person has to receive security sensitive employee training. We are standing that up right now with our contractor at Alexandria, for instance. Those constructing that will have to receive that training. We have done it. We've recorded it. Actually, it's very specific to VRE. We have recorded it, put it together, and for the first time, we've done it in English and Spanish for our employees. So we're learning there. It's going well. It's been distributed. So if some of you looking around the room may be required to do it in the coming weeks and months, just know that is coming. Also, it's important to note that for right of entry, especially, the process is different based on where you are working. We are still working closely with our partners at VPRA to get the particulars and sort of iron out the wrinkles of right of entry on the Manassas line. But if you're working on the CSX on the Fredericksburg line, you might have to get right of entry from both CSX and VPRA, depending on, in most cases you will, because of the nature of the work and the nature of how the corridor has been bifurcated east to west. So just know that. Flagging protection by third party, that has been a change, I would say one of the bigger changes in this category since our last meeting of this kind. We now see a lot more third party flagging from the railroads. Basically, I mean, it's handled, and I could say the NS seems to be getting out of the railroad flagging business altogether, even for themselves, I think. In fact, they're sort of third party in that universally. So know that will be required in your project. So if you're going out on a project to do geotechnical investigation and you have to have flagging because of the equipment, these are things you will need, including railroad protective liability, which is the last one on my list here. Typically what we've been allowed to do is have contractors sign on as a rider, pay a small sum to the respective railroad by the rider to get onto that policy for railroad protective liability. We cannot provide that to you. So you have to provide that for yourselves. I would say, for those of you not currently doing business with us, when you start to do business with us, these are things you will have to do business with us, and that you will have to coordinate closely with your project manager. Because as much as I might say it here today, things will likely change before that time. They are pretty fluid in a couple of these cases just because of the nature of the right of way and what's going on with our partners. So I'll pause for a moment to see if there's any questions on this one, because this one can be a little confusing, but I think we're pretty well covered. Know that there's training, know that you have to do it, coordinate with your PM. So roadway worker protection. So each host railroad it's a 4 to 6 hour training, depending on which one. Any person working on the right of way with the potential to foul track with person or equipment has to complete roadway worker protection training. Typically, what we will do is we have a code that we use with a third party provider. We'll send out the code that you can complete the training if you're working with us. But a lot of consultants, contractors work directly with the host railroad and their providers for that. It's relatively inexpensive, but it is absolutely required. Yep. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you for that question. I would say if you have a question in your mind, chances are someone else in the room has the same questions. Please don't be embarrassed to ask. All right, and pick up that. All right. I think the folks in the room that have done business with us can attest that we are very good about paying our bills on time. We pride ourselves on prompt payment for services. If you do your job well, we will do our job well and get you paid. We understand the value of cash flow. It is paramount to us. And we know that it's paramount to you. It is one thing outside of safety that we take very seriously. To do that, however, we need to make sure folks are doing their part. We need some consistency between our consultants and our contractors. I know this is a very difficult image to see, but I put it on this slide to make a point that we will be distributing. This is for all existing contracts coming soon to an inbox near you. We will be providing a new invoice cover sheet. I will be asking you to certify your invoices, not certify in the way like an AIA form for the contractors, but basically I want you to take some ownership in reviewing it. And there's a reason for this. We'll get to more of that in the next slide, but I want you to know that the PMs will be distributing this. I want every consultant and eventually every contractor to be using the invoice cover sheet, which will also double as our capital projects review cover sheet. We need to make sure that things are getting covered well. It'll be a single summary for all of your project, right? How your billing is going. We just need the consistency between parties, right? Not that any one of you is doing your cover sheets wrong, but if I pull up a GFT cover sheet, a VHB cover sheet, and I don't know, HDR cover sheet, no two are the same. None are wrong, just not the same. And sometimes it can be difficult to find the information we need between them. So we will be distributing this. It will be, for us, a form of cost reporting, cost tracking that will feed into our Munis system, which is our ERP for finance, for accounting system. It will also record any amendments to your contract in perpetuity, both proposed and awarded changes, we'll say, to your contract. So think of it in that terms as well. We think that it'll be a good tool. Next, I want to talk about just cash flow because, again, it's important. So it's important that folks understand how we fund our projects and why this becomes important. It's not VRE money, right? Even the funding, it's not like we get funding from FTA and put it in a bank account somewhere just to fund your projects, right? Everything is reimbursed. And because it is reimbursed, we float the money, right? We float a lot of money. For instance, the project outside the window here, first invoice, second invoice, and whatever is $5 million. We have 30 days to pay it. We don't typically get reimbursement in 30 days. We are working to get our better reimbursements. And I'm telling you all this so you will know the why, right? It's easy to understand a lot of things, but the why helps a lot. The why is $5 million is a lot of money to float, and that's just one project. imagine, if you will, in, let's say, fall of 28, right? When we have half of those projects on the screen in construction, and each one of them is seeing a $5 million invoice, right? That's $20 million a month, and we don't have that kind of money to float. And so we need money to flow quickly. What can happen is, if your invoices have fault, it gets returned, and we have to go back through the cycle, and that's that much longer on the cycle. And we know time is money, and if we can keep that money in the bank versus floating it to contractors for payment, then it's better for us, better for you. We want to get you paid, but we have to make sure that when you're submitting these things, they are right. So we're going to do some internal training soon with our staff, which will then be, we'll offer some external training to our consultants, but really it comes down to internally consistent. Like, I don't want to see an invoice that has the detailed summary doesn't match your total, right? Your overall summary, even by a few pennies, that gets it kicked back. Literally, I've seen invoices come back for a matter of cents on the differences that can't be explained. And sometimes it's a year behind, like from the time, walk the dog on this one, right? We get a invoice from a contractor. We get 30 days to pay it. We pay it. We submit it. We review it. We submit it to our funding agency. There's actually an intermediary between our funding agency. So PRTC will review our invoices for FTA. MVTC reviews our invoices for state funding. And so they get to review it. That may take 30 days to 2 months. Then they send it off to the funding agent. That may take 30 days to 2 months. So you're 6 months removed or more from the original cost, and we've been floating that money the whole time. If it comes back to the beginning, it starts all over again, and that takes a long time. And so that is why we need these to be right. We need you to get it right the first time and every time. I went back and did an analysis. Over a 5-year period, we had a default rate of about 3 or 4%, which 3-4% of that amount of money is a lot of money. And that's money we had to sit on and not get reimbursed for. So I'm telling you this to help us, right? And the more you can help us, the more we can help you. So get it internally correct, and make sure you're doing the GSA stuff right. We have GSA rates for hotel, per diem, those sorts of things. If you're not, you can eat some of those costs and overhead if you want. We understand some firms do that. There are some things you can include: entertainment, alcohol, things like that cannot be billed to us, cannot be reimbursed. So we'll go over some of these rules and some of the specifics. We're going through an analysis of the faults we've seen. And this error rate that I mentioned, the PMs are looking ever closer at these invoices, right, Coker? That's right. So it's not easy to talk about, but it's something that we need to make sure we get right in doing business with us. All right. There's a little delay here. Another exciting thing that's changed since we saw you last, we have published our facilities design guidelines. This publication is a culmination of projects over the last few years. We've taken some of the best of our designs, some of the things we've learned in construction, and documented them in this book. It is, I think, fairly easy to use. It is not considered a standard or a regulatory requirement in any way, shape, or form, but know that it is a guideline. When you start a project, this is where you go. If you want to pursue some of our projects, go here, kind of see what we're doing and how we're doing it from, use of industry standards, what's important to us, how we do things, what's not important to us. I think it sort of speaks loudly in what's not in here, but there's a lot that's covered. This goes back to that collaborative effort, because we have taken the best from each of our consultants and put it in this book, right? I will offer that no one of us is smarter than all of us, right? And we've put that together. This is a collection of that intelligence that we've gathered in the last 5 or 6 years. It did take about that long to put it together, right, Coker? So it has a lot of information about our system. It has a lot of information about our host railroads, what they want, why we have to do what they're asking, slight variations and differences in the design guidelines. If it's 5 foot 1 inches from center line of track to edge of platform for CSX versus 5 foot 3 inches for NS, right? There's these nuances of design that are covered here, but it's pretty straightforward and very useful. It's long, it's about 200 pages, but it's a lot of useful information. And it even gets into some of the things that Nick would be happy to hear, some of the planning elements that we want to consider, sustainability elements that we want to consider, things like that. So know that it's there, know that we use it extensively, and that we expect you to use it. Cost tool. One of the more painful things that we have to do outside of permitting, I would say. But getting our cost tool, when I first came to VRE years ago, I was tasked with collecting and evaluating some cost estimates for projects. I collected 4 cost estimates from 3 different consultants, and no 2 of them were the same, even the 2 from the same consultant. Right? So let that sink in, right? No 2 were the same. Again, none of them were wrong, but none of them were the same. And it put us in the sort of spin. Well, did this one include escalation? Did they include, soft costs for engineering, all the things that sort of go with a total project cost? So we sat down and made I will call an original version that we distributed. We got a lot of feedback. Some of it was not so good, but we made a beta version, and we've since distributed that. We're on version 4.1, right, Chris? 4.1 now, and using it extensively. So we're kind of in this weird place where we don't want and we don't need the detailed estimate like you might see in a VDOT estimate, right? They have, their database, you can reinforcing steel, epoxy coated reinforcing steel, like you can get pretty detailed on an estimate. That's not what we're looking for in the detailed estimate, nor do we want the sort of architectural approach of lump sum everything or lump sum for the whole project, right? So we have this sort of balance between the two, the seesaw of we want some details, so we lump things together, like platform will be a pay item, but platform includes tactile, all the things that concrete, the tactile, the excavation, sort of kitchen sink approach for a single pay item, but not minute pay items. We encourage it. So you may be working with, in fact, I would encourage you to work with a cost estimating professional, cost per value estimating professionals to get a detailed estimate, and then it rolls up into our format. But it's on you, the consultant, the PMs especially, to do that. We'd like to have more insight from our contractors in the room too, because they offer a lot of insight on how these costs are actually established, right? Not that we're going to go to the nth degree on the RS means methodology, but it's useful to know that there are people out there that can do that and then roll it into our cost estimate. So we've made a lot of improvements, I will say, to the cost tool that have kept us honest. But we've also learned a lot in so doing. We do include inflationary, so we'll go to a mid-year of construction, look how many years out that is, look at some inflationary rates, which I know are pretty wild lately. But we are tracking also, we have some nomenclature in the cost tool that allows us to track certain things historically speaking. So what's the cost of a station or platform, for instance, per square foot historically to us. So we can go and look at that, which helps us estimating future projects as well. So there's a lot of meaty parts to these, and we're happy to share. But it's certainly, this is something that, again, go back to the project manager for your project, and they can distribute this and help you complete it. It's a 2 or 3-part process. And we do include all the things that mentioned here: design, construction management, construction itself, construction contingencies, inflation, a lot of things that are important that we, including our own costs, right? We have to track flagging cost and our cost to even project manager time, which was reimbursable expense, project expense from the FTA to the FTA. So it's very helpful. I'll pause for a moment. Any questions on those last two items? All right. Use of VRE tools and templates other than the cost tool template. We've been working on a few things since this meeting last, which I think it's been a few years since we did it in this format, but we've been working on a lot of things that we hope will bring us, as I say at the bottom, better, faster decision-making based on more accurate and more readily available information. It's that more readily available that's been proven to be difficult. But we're 3 systems that we're working in now, which are Munis. And Munis, if you hear me use that, is Tyler Munis is our ERP system for accounting. all things go through Munis to get paid. All of our POs, all our recs, all of our contracts come and go through Munis, so to get paid. We're doing that. We have stood up ArcGIS, SRead, ArcGIS inventory. We are working with one of our consultants to work through collecting that inventory, right? And in a very robust data. I'm trying to do it before we get a lot more, and we're getting a lot more faster than I can inventory it. And so it's been quite the effort. And then SharePoint, which seems to be the new buzzword, or Dataverse is actually another one that we like. But using these tools, we would expect you to basically integrate with these tools as well in future efforts with us, and how, and a couple of things I want to cover outside of these three, right? We have very limited use of eBuilder. Right? We do use eBuilder. It is our PMIS, a PMIS that we employ, but we'd use it for really only 2 processes today. We've sort of weaned ourselves from it, except for these 2 processes, and that's invoicing. So it starts externally on eBuilder, and then the RFC and change order process for contractors, especially, which we found it to be very useful. We spent a lot of time building robust processes in eBuilder and aren't ready to dispose of them yet. But we do plan to stand up new processes, probably in eBuilder, and then eventually, in SharePoint, and then abandon eBuilder. But know that you will be expected to interface in the eBuilder world when you're working with us. We expect our CMs, our construction managers, to bring their own PMIS. We are not wed to eBuilder, just to be clear. We like it. We like it enough to pay them a lot of money every year, but it's not required. If you, contractor, consulting firm, ABC, want to use Procore, for instance, or EA Docs, or Kahua, such as VPRA, there's no preclusion to that, right? We don't preclude any of those. And we ask that when you come to do the CM work for us, you use your tool, but we get access to all the data at the end, basically a data dump into our SharePoint system, so that we can maintain all those records that live with that project. It's a fairly straightforward approach. I think Justin's in the back there. Is it good working for you, right? Yeah. So they're doing some CM work for us and sitting right next to our other Anthony, our other CM on a current project. So we have a lot going on this way. It seems to be successful. I like the sort of universal language that the PMIs can speak without having to commit to any one of them financially, right? So that's helpful. Just know that we will ask you to do that. We are using SharePoint extensively. We're looking to do some more development, but currently we use document storage, reporting for everything that's non-financial. So we don't track, that's all out of Munis system, is all the financials. We do project journal, and basically we keep notes on a monthly basis for every project. You can go into our system today and pull this information. What the future looks like is a little bit in question. I'm looking at John, over here, but we have big plans moving forward with SharePoint or even Dataverse in this roles-based processes, that we can do these sorts of things that you would be a part of, both in development and in use in the future and implementation. All scheduling is in Primavera. Like, we do everything in Primavera. We, CSX and VPRA, came to an agreement that we would all use the same software. We're all using P6, and we put our schedules together on a monthly basis for every project, send it to CSX and VPRA. It goes in a big pile with all their projects. So we have a giant master schedule of all projects on the corridor, which has proven to be very helpful. Complicated as you can imagine, but very helpful to us all to be able to pinch in and look at our project and how we might be affecting other projects, and vice versa, how they affect us. So it's very helpful. I think Primavera seems to be the universal language of schedulers, CPM modeling as best we can do. We do not get a lot of, into it a lot in-house, although we have the capabilities. We do have a number of licenses. We can use it. We're not scheduling experts. We are railroad experts. And so we look upon you to do that for us and help us, especially on the CM role, but also even beyond the CM role in some of our program management and planning elements. I love checklists, right? It's a thing, right? I heard an article, read a book years back talking about checklists and how they were employed in some hospitals in Africa, and it drove down the infection rate tremendously. Just knowing how many sponges you put in and how many sponges you take out, right, is important in the medical profession. So we learned a lot about checklist and how useful it can be. and we've implemented checklist, particularly our IFB, the issued for bid checklist. Anytime we have a set of plans going out, our PM will be the shepherd of that checklist. We will look hard to our CMs to help us complete the checklist, but it basically tells everybody, you know, it's sort of like that Houston control. Okay, are we ready with all the permitting? Are we ready with all the property? Are we ready with plans and specs, all the contract documents? It literally is a multi-page checklist that can be broken out and peeled off into certain parties and used that way. If you have a good checklist, I'd love to see it. Whether it's design checklist, QC checklist, it is a very helpful tool to us. I expect you to use them internally. If you have good ones, I'd love to see it and share it and use it for us as well. So just know that you'd be expected to do that. We think it's a useful tool. All right. Opportunities to visit with VRE. I could spend any number of hours a day visiting with our consultants and contractors and potential consultants and contractors. As you can imagine, that gets pretty cumbersome for us. No disrespect, but we like to visit with you, but it can be incredibly consuming. I will offer what is my favorite opportunity to visit with VRE is the Tour de VRE. We are 157 days out, so just about 6 months out. I'm very excited for the Tour de VRE. I look around this room and see a number of faces that have ridden the Tour de VRE, at least part of it, right, Zach? At least part of it. The 6th annual will be on Saturday, October 3rd, which is the first Saturday in Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So those of you that know the story of the origins of this ride, share the story because it's a pretty cool story. But you can ride with VRE. What better way to visit with us than a 35-mile bike ride and a party at the end? There are sponsorship opportunities. By that, I mean, we basically, our consultants and contractors are invited to join us. Many of them set up a tent at each, well, let me back up a second. The ride is along our line, either Fredericksburg or Manassas line. At each station location, we have a tent or two where riders can stop and get refreshments, things like that. And then all of the tents move to the finish line where we have entertainment, we'll say, door prizes, and we have just a big celebration. It's always the first Saturday, first weekend in October. It's a lot of fun. It's 35-mile ride or more. So it's been upwards of 70 miles. 68 miles was the longest one, I think, the first year. 70, Chris is saying 70 proudly. And you can do it for the whole ride, full pull. You can do a partial ride, station to station. We don't care. Just come out and join us. There are other opportunities for sponsorships. One of our maintenance contractor donates all of the porta-johns at all of the stations. That is their contribution each year, which is a nice contribution for us riders. So there's a lot going on. It's a lot of fun. We will be basically Save the Date is coming out here right soon, Lindsay. The Save the Date is coming soon, but we will open registration. We have doubled or tripled our number of riders every year since we started. We had 155 riders last year. I want to double that again this year. So if everybody who rode it last year brings a friend, we will double. My stated goal is 10 years and 1,000 riders if we can get there. So raising awareness for breast cancer research, triple negative breast cancer research. So just know that this is a good opportunity to interact with us, right? In the planning process and the delivery process, post brief, but 6-hour bike ride is a fun way to spend some time together. All right. Intern program. We don't have a lot of interns. VPRA, I think, has a number of interns this year, which is exciting. I know there's an intern in the room, right, Laura? Nice to see you. Howard University, working in the industry. So I guess starting this internship for you right away. We have a couple of opportunities this year. We like to promote this. I will say that 2 of the 3 interns that I've offered in the last few years have gone to work in industry for one of our consultants. So it's good for you. It's good for me. It's good for VRE. We learn a lot. They learn a lot, and we get them in industry, which we all know we need some good engineers, especially in the industry. So there are opportunities for that. If you know someone, we have a couple of opportunities posted right now. I will say, if you have opportunity to work with our interns, take every chance you can to teach them and help them learn your business as much as ours. So that would be very much appreciated. Those solicitations are out. The deadline's May 5th. So hopefully we can get some new stuff. Future opportunities, there will be government and community affairs, working with Lindsay and team, right? And so more internships coming. Generally, it's a summer internship, but we have had interns stick around for a while. In fact, upwards of 18 months, which really got to know our system well. How many of you employ, show of hands, summer interns in your programs? Right? So it's a good way to get good talent to the industry. Lunch and learn. I love to eat too. Love to eat and love to learn. As a consultant, many years ago, I made it a practice. Like, it's a good way to promote your technical talent, right? And so, if you have what you think is a superior technical talent, we'd love to learn more. So you can pick case studies, pick a project. We can write eventually, ARIMA papers and case studies together and submit them, right? That's a lot of fun. But come see us, right? Instead of trying to, one individual take them to lunch or coffee or whatever, right? Which is not, it's kind of frowned upon, right? But you can come and see 10 or 12 of us all at once and let us get to know you. We can share a meal together. We can talk about your technical wares, talk about technical opportunities that might be commensurate with those, with your technical skills. So I encourage you to work through your PMs, set up a date, come see us. We're happy to have you. We're always happy to learn. It's a fun way to interact, and I think it's a meaningful way to do that. So we generally don't want non-technical topics, but we do like some non-technical topics. Let me restate that. Some non-technical topics such as funding and operations stuff that we traditionally don't see outside the engineering community. Like, one thing I'd love to learn about is, modeling. I know so little about RTC modeling and operations modeling. I'd love to learn more. One way to do that, hint to some of our consultants, is come see us, right? Come talk about it and teach our team on how that works and what we do, how it's done. So those are a few ways. I think we're about done here. I want to open the floor to questions. I know there may be a lot of them. Again, no questions are bad questions. I hope we will share. I'm in no hurry to go stand in the rain over at the station for Meet the Management, but you're welcome to join us. But it is starting soon. Questions in the room? Show of hands. Anyone? Or online? Anything online? Where do we got? Who's in the back? Laura, yes. All right. So for those online that couldn't hear the questions, how do you coordinate for a lunch and learn with VRE? Contact one of the project managers. If you can't reach them, contact me. Let us know what you'd like to do, talk about, when you'd like to do it. Usually Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays are pretty good opportunities. Wednesdays in the spring are bad because it's our Meet the Management days. But any of those are, we're open to that idea. Come and see us. We have a conference room. It seats probably 25 people if we had to get them in there, 30 maybe at the most. But let us know what topics. Maybe give us a menu of topics if you have some you might want to talk about. We'd love to hear. Other questions?
Piggyback question on that. Do you need personal development?
Yeah, we like PDHs. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Extra credit for PDHs, CEUs. Yeah, for sure. Especially if it's, if you've had an ARIMA topic in the past that you can share with us, ARIMA or others. Katie is real big on CMAA, right? A lot of construction management stuff. You can share those sorts of things. We'd love to hear. We do. And I found that these lunch and learns it's a very two-way street, right? We share out kind of what we've learned from perhaps what you're talking about, and you can share with us what you've learned. It seems to be a very symbiotic thing that we've done, that we do enjoy. So it's a good way to get in front of us too. Other questions? I hope there'd be more questions about our projects. So, but opportunities there. Yes, over here. So the question is about the slide I showed, which I'll come back to if I can. It might be a few back, about the software use and the various software packages we're using and how they talk to each other. The issue is they don't talk well to each other, and we'd like to solve that. I'll unpack some of that with you because this could be a topic, for instance, for a lunch and learn. But We are working with one of our consultants to stand up ArcGIS, taking an inventory, starting with just the infrastructure. Rolling stock, I found, is not, ArcGIS is not conducive really for rolling stock because it moves, but it can be done. We are doing it largely for all of our infrastructure stations. We sent out teams to survey it, using basically our historical plans as a background. We want to get a good inventory. We're still working through what metadata is what is available for ArcGIS and what metadata do we want, right? It's different, kind of what you want and what you have might be two different things. You might want something you don't have, you might have something you don't want. And so we're working through a lot of the particulars of that inventory on the ArcGIS. Munis, which is a Tyler Munis ERP program purely for finance, I will offer, does not play well with others when it comes to interfacing necessarily. It can be done through API. I shouldn't say it's not bad. It's just it's not easy. And then SharePoint, we're using SharePoint extensively, mostly for the things named here, that document storage, where we can share easily. We have a SharePoint site for every project. We call it TIES, our Total Integrated Enterprise System. We tie all that together for projects so that with a common platform and a common structure so that we can find things, which is very useful. We do not currently have any roles-based processes in this SharePoint model. That is something I'd like to get to eventually. Hint, hint, John. So we'd like to get there with the SharePoint Dataverse sort of tools. But to really answer your question is they don't translate well between them. And I think we're not the only ones to see that. If you have a better mousetrap, I'd love to see it. So we've been talking to others in as late as this morning this afternoon about enterprise asset management and what that means to us and how we could integrate some of these things. You know, the penultimate for me is when, you know, Eric wants to replace a roof on a 20-year-old facility. We cut a work order in Munis at a PO work order. It goes into the system, it gets done, it gets documented in ArcGIS and gets updated in the asset management system. That is the penultimate of delivery for us and how and then more importantly, the predictive analytics. Tell me when that roof needs to be replaced, right? So I can predict it and budget for it. So that's what we'd like to see. Yeah. Not safety data in the terms of incidents, but safety data in the terms of safety equipment, right? We do have a lot of that recorded from an infrastructure standpoint. But yeah, that would be a sort of good cherry on top would be how safety incidents may be related to some of that infrastructure. So good question. Yes, Laura in the back. There is not a standalone geotechnical engineering contract. A lot of that comes to us through, and I wanted to make sure I had a question out in the hall about this, and this will help kind of clarify some of that, I hope. A number of you have asked, like, not everything is done through task orders in these contracts, multi-IDIQ contracts, right? Multi-task order. So anytime there are thresholds to how much money we can spend on a particular contract in a year, through VPPA, but there's also individual limits on an individual task order that we can do as well. So I can do, Kristen will get me right on this, but where'd she go? I guess Kristen's, oh, where is she? Yeah, Kristen's over there. I mean, I'm going to throw numbers out, but it's like, you know, 1.5 million per task order or 5 million per year in aggregate. I'm just throwing out numbers. Don't quote me on that. But that's the kind of thing, like what's that? It's higher now. I think it's changed with this latest version of the VPPA, right? 2.5 million and 10 or something like that. So it's 2.5 million on an individual project, but we don't have to do that. And when we get to a certain threshold, we like to put it out as an individual contract. So we'll put out an RFP for design services, for instance, if it's a $2 million contract, because maybe I want some competition, maybe I want it to, but our GECs and the soon to be GPECs are not precluded from competing for the RFP either, right? So they can compete because it's a public solicitation. Anyone can compete, but it doesn't just automatically go to a GPC or GEC. Round back to your question, the geotechnical services typically come to us through our prime consultant, right, if you will. But a lot of them built teams of surveying, geotech, permitting, cost value, right? Like those sorts of things make up a composite team for our consultants, whether it's an RFP or a task order. So, and having that ability to kind of pluck those services when we need them is very helpful. Questions? More? Keep them coming. Yes, sir. How are our IT services? Boy, that is a loaded question. I could have a lot of fun with that. So our move it your laughs. No, it's a large percentage of our IT department is sitting in the front of the room, right? So that's how it's largely provided. We do outsource some services through state contracts and otherwise, but largely through in-house services. But we do supplement. We have supplemented quite frequently. We have 3 contract employees. Is that right? 3 contract employees in our IT department. That 3 of the 6, I will say, right? Right? Is that right? 3 of the 6 persons in our IT employment are contracted for a particular thing. One for cybersecurity, for instance, right? One for we're working on our TRIP system that we need to rebuild in Java. And so that's new to us. But that's generally how we do our IT services. Yes. But we've done some, I would say, like SharePoint development, which I consider an IT service, right? In some respects. That's right. Can you repeat that, please? That's right. That's right. The core mission, yeah. Hmm. Yeah. That's right. And I see it the same way for my group. Like we are not the we're not the core mission, right? Our core mission is get people to work on time, safely, get them home on time, safely. Like that's our core mission, right? What I do, it just helps that. In fact, it took me a long time. I will share with you, coming from the consulting world for 20 years, it took me a long time to figure that out, right? Who's my customer? My customer is, my operating officer or my, superintendent of my yard down in Crossroads when I'm building a new yard, right? Those are my customers. My core mission is to support that. So yeah, that's a good point. And it's true for all of us. Just remember that. Other questions? I hope I answered that one, right? Honestly, but I was saying is we do outsource some of those IT, like software development in some cases, like doing the SharePoint. We've done a couple of outsources with various companies to help us over the hump because we can't increase our number of full-time equivalents or FTEs without board approval. It's not like I can just go hire an IT person or go hire a new engineer. So we have to do it differently. Any questions on the online, Lindsay? All right, good. Any questions in the room? I really appreciate you all being here. I know some of you have traveled from far, some farther than others, Mr. Ireland over there. So we appreciate you being here. We really, for those of you that aren't currently working with us, we really hope you can work with us because there's a lot to go around. And I think having more and different minds at the table helps us learn a lot and do a lot. So we hope for opportunities with you. If you have any feedback about this event, I'd love for you to share it with me or Lindsay or others, right? We want to continue to do this. If we get the right kind of feedback, we will be permitted to continue to do this. I know specifically there are a few opportunities we didn't share today that just weren't ready for daylight, things that were coming soon, for instance, or things that we know we've got really close to it, right? So stay close to the website. I will tell you if there's any contractors left in the room, for instance, our seminary yard construction, that's one we mentioned, but Crossroads, we have a new building for vertical construction, which we don't do often, but we're going to have a new building coming at Crossroads very soon, solicitation. So those are the sorts of things that we want to share with you, we want you to do, and we want to get the word out. All right. Last call. Appreciate you being here. Thank you.